On this Halloween night, there is nothing scarier to Donald Trump than the Epstein files. It is what he has been spending all of his time running and hiding from, trying to distract us with insane posts, crazy stunts. He's literally shut down the government to try to hide the Epstein files. But the guy who brought the most attention to this scandal with one post many months ago, Elon Musk, is now reigniting it with an appearance on Joe Rogan and a crazy admission about Donald Trump that we are going to get into, as well as an interview with Congressman Robert Garcia for all the updates that you need to know about this Epstein scandal. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Elon said, and of course, Congressman Robert Garcia's breaking updates, I want to start with how Donald Trump is using this shutdown to cover up the Epstein files, which is all broken down by Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
And he now sees the government shutdown as being as much or more about the Epstein files as it is about the federal budget.
It's criminal. It's outrageous that we have a duly elected member certified. The election has been certified by her own state. There's over 800,000 people in the state of Arizona with no representation in the Congress because Mike Johnson is afraid of the Epstein files and is currently right now playing cover-up for Donald Trump and the White House. This idea that we now have a shutdown because they're too scared of the truth, they're too scared of getting justice for the survivors of women and girls that have been trafficked, as we know, in the past by Jeffrey Epstein and other powerful men. And so this shutdown has become, I think, really emblematic of the corruption in the Republican Party.
We now have a shutdown because you are too scared of the truth. The shutdown appeared to be about budget issues at the beginning, but as it drags on with absolutely no attempt to negotiate those budget issues, you have a right to wonder what it is really about. And with the Speaker of the House using the government shutdown as an excuse for not swearing in the newest elected member of the House of Representatives who would become the decisive vote in the House to release the Epstein files, gives Congressman Garcia more than enough evidence to reasonably argue that, quote, we now have a shutdown because you are too scared of the truth. If the shutdown is not about the Epstein files, then prove it. Speaker Johnson can swear in the newest elected member of the House of Representatives tomorrow, Adelita Grijalva. And the only reason he is not doing that is that she would then immediately become the decisive vote to release the Epstein files. Technically, she would become the 218th signature on a so-called discharge petition, which forces a vote in the House of Representatives on releasing the Epstein files, a vote everyone knows will pass. And so Donald Trump travels the world avoiding any possible negotiation to end the shutdown because the shutdown shuts down the Epstein files. Donald Trump proves the pointlessness of his world travels whenever he talks about them. Today on Air Force One, after his meetings in China, he told reporters something that would be unthinkable for any other president in that situation. He said, quote, Taiwan never came up. It was not discussed. Taiwan never came up. No kidding. It never comes up unless the American president brings it up. No Chinese dictator.
While this shutdown is clearly an opportunity for Trump to make Americans feel pain, to do what Russ Vought wanted, in his words, traumatize federal workers and the rest of us by gutting health care, cutting food assistance, doing anything possible to break the government and make us think that it works for no one, not us, not me and you, just billionaires. Donald Trump is also, of course, using this shutdown as an opportunity to keep people from talking about Epstein. But there is one person who really did bring more attention to this scandal than anyone else, although us and the independent media have been talking about it all the time, Elon Musk, who said something rather bizarre on his appearance with Joe Rogan today about how he views Donald Trump many months after he said that he was in the Epstein files. Musk tells Joe Rogan why Trump is not perfect. Donald Trump is not perfect because he is a product of his time, says his former first buddy Elon Musk. The billionaire made the assertion during a more than 3-hour interview with podcaster Joe Rogan, during which he made clear that he remains as right-wing as ever despite his epic falling out with Trump in June. Still, Trump's wealthiest friend turned foe, possibly turned friend again, do we know, said he does not believe Trump, who was born in 1946, weeks, making him among the first wave of baby boomers in his generation, is as evil as all the mainstream media portrays him to be, accurately, by the way, because he is evil. Some people still think, Trump is like the devil, basically, said Musk. And I mean, I think Trump actually is not perfect, but he's not evil. Trump is not evil. I spent a lot of time with him, and he's a product of his time, but he is not evil. He's not evil. Musk was born in 1971, making him a Gen Xer. Rogan, 58, is also a member of Gen X. He agreed with Musk that the president, whom he endorsed last year, is far from evil. I don't think he's evil either, Rogan said, but if you look at the media coverage, Musk then cut the podcaster off, chomping at the bit to sneak in his own attack on the press, which I don't even want to listen to. So Elon goes on Joe Rogan, who is always happy to suck up to billionaires, whether it's Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, it doesn't matter. Joe Rogan is just like a bootlicker for all these billionaires. It's really gross considering you're this guy with this huge platform. You don't have to take any shit from anyone. Like the point of independent media, because a lot of people talk about the importance of independent media, but they kind of gloss over the fact that what you should be doing is, if you have an independent platform, to not only be using it to say what you think is right, but to be work in contradiction to what is being pushed by the corporate-owned media. It's not enough to just have your own platform and then push the same talking points that corporate executives in the C-suite would want you to. No, you actually have to push back on the mainstream narratives, call out the bullshit, be real. Joe Rogan is not that. He still serves the billionaire class because all he has is fucking right-wing weirdos on his show. But what Elon said is so strange. Trump is a product of his generation. That's an excuse that you often hear for the disgusting and, let's be fucking honest, illegal behavior of people like Donald Trump. So is he admitting that Trump was engaging in criminal acts and conspiracy and being a fucking pedophile with Jeffrey Epstein because of his time? There's not really an excuse in the court of law, Elon. This is also not an excuse in the court of public opinion. Donald Trump is a disgusting individual. I don't care what year he was born in. It's inexcusable, obviously. But Elon saying that, oh, he's not the devil, then why'd you say he was in the Epstein files? Now, of course, recently more information came out about Elon being in the Epstein files, how he was invited to Epstein's island. So maybe he's running a little cover for himself because it was right after that came out that Elon was in the Epstein files, that he kind of wanted to be buddies with Donald Trump again. So is there some blackmail happening? I don't know, but that's why we need everything that is in those files. And Robert Garcia talked with me about that, and I want you to take a look at our interview. Congressman, there is obviously so much news for us to be covering right now, but I want to start where everyone wants us to start, and that is any updates on bringing forward, of course, that 218th signature with Rep. Adelita Grijalva, I guess, Representative-elect Mike Johnson still stalling, still blocking any movement on bringing forth that discharge petition. What are the updates that we know right now, and how are we able to make sure that we can have some actual movement on the Epstein files right now?
Look, I think we should just be really clear. We've been saying this now for months. The Epstein case, what's happening right now, is an enormous White House cover-up that now Mike Johnson is complicit in, House Republicans are a part of. There is clearly an enormous amount of information that they are hiding. And the fact that they are doing this and not bringing justice to these women, these girls, as we know, minors in many cases for the abuse of Jeffrey Epstein, it just shows you right now, it shows the public how, I think, really disgusted we are at Republicans right now in the Congress. The fact they're not sitting at Adelita Grijalva because they know she will be that final signature to get this vote for the subpoena in front of the Congress is shameful, and it's un-American and, quite frankly, borderline illegal. She is now the longest serving person that has not been sat by a speaker during a period of time where she's been elected by over 800,000 folks that have no voice right now in the Congress. And so she should be sacked. She will sign that petition. I talk to her regularly. She's ready to help us get these files and have our investigation move forward. And so this is a shutdown in large part because Mike Johnson does not want to release the files, clearly because he's taking orders from Donald Trump.
You talk about borderline illegal. We've seen some movement on that from electeds in Arizona and the state government. You know, when Democrats win, and I'm going to say win, I know we got to fight, but when we retake the House, will there be subpoenas that go out to the folks who helped Mike Johnson? And of course, we're communicating on blocking Adelita Grijalva from being sworn in, blocking this democratic process. Do you think we need to revisit that? There will be so much to talk about with the Epstein files, but do you think oversight needs to look into what happened in our Congress?
we will be looking into it. I mean, look, once oversight Democrats have the majority, we have a long list, first of all, of subpoenas. And it's not just to ensure that this corruption that Mike Johnson is involved with Representative Grijalva doesn't happen again, but it's also ensuring that we're actually getting transparency. I mean, Mike Johnson can't get his story straight as to why he hasn't sat Adelita Grijalva into the Congress. We know, of course, that he's blocking all sorts of actions from the Congress and for us to meet and actually move legislation forward. And broadly speaking, on the Jeffrey Epstein case, we need so much information. Why is Pam Bondi covering up for Donald Trump? Why? We know she has the Epstein files on her desk because she said so. We know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files because she has said so, according to reporting. They could solve this entire national conversation and challenge for them if they would just be honest and release the files and stop being corrupt and actually do the right thing.
Do you think Mike Johnson cares about his public perception right now as the weakest speaker we have ever had, which is crazy considering that Kevin McCarthy existed? But do you think Johnson cares that he's just kind of like Trump is making a mockery of him? He's completely ceded any power from the Congress. John Thune is the same way. Do you think he cares, or he's kind of like happy being Trump's bitch at this point?
Yeah, he doesn't care about public perception. He cares about the public perception of one person.
Yeah.
You know, he has an audience of one. His constituency is Donald Trump. And he believes that the future of his own political power, his speakership, is in the hands of Donald Trump, because it's true. Look, the entire Republican Party has essentially bended the knee to Trump. They do whatever he wants them to do. They take on whatever issue he wants them to take on. Mike Johnson does whatever Donald Trump tells him to do. And clearly at this moment, the orders from the White House appear to have been, do not seat her, do not get the Epstein files released, continue to hide, continue to be part of this cover-up. She needs to be sat. The shutdown needs to end, and we need to release the Epstein files.
Yeah, but it seems like there is, although these people are in a cult, like the only movement is around when that vote actually might come to pass. How many Republicans do you think, if we get 218 signatures and we get Adelita Grijalva's signature on the discharge petition, how many of your Republican colleagues do you think would vote to release the Epstein files?
I think we're gonna get a good amount, honestly.
Oh, really?
I do.
Is that what you've just been hearing?
That's what I've been hearing. Look,
is anyone coming to you and saying that?
I've heard from multiple Republicans that they would vote for it if it came to a vote. And I think, obviously, let's wait and see how many phone calls Donald Trump makes to members of the House to see if that actually happens. But I do feel pretty confident that if we got the petition and the actual legislation in front of the House, I think it would pass, and I think we'd have a good chunk of Republicans voting for it. How can you vote against disclosure when you spend part of your entire political career, including member of these House members and the president, when their position has been release the files, we're obsessed with this, then you're going to completely flip-flop? I mean, the American public gets what's going on, and many of them feel betrayed by Donald Trump. His base is asking also, why not release the files? And if you look at public polling, it's not just a enormous amount, supermajority of Democrats that want the files released. It's also Republicans in huge majorities want the files released. And so this is an issue that's not going to go away. So they better just focus on getting the truth out there, vote for this, get the files released, get the subpoenas out the door, and the DOJ should be getting us all the files immediately.
Yeah, of course. And I want to come back quickly to something that you said about the subpoenas that will be going out around the Epstein files before we talk a little shutdown. Who is at the top of that list right now as it kind of relates to the Republicans in Congress who have been taking so much part in blocking any movement? Of course, we know Pam Bondi and Kash Patel have been stalling as much as possible, and they'll be coming before Congress again. But when it comes to Republican donors, staffers, whoever it may be, like who is at the kind of the top of that list that folks may not be thinking about, who you will want to bring before the committee?
At the top of the list are the leaders of many of the financial institutions across this country and bank and financial records. Because we know that in order to solve this case and to really bring justice to the survivors and the victims, a lot of this is about money and about the enormous wealth that the richest people, not just in our country, but clearly across this world, were involved in this enormous sex trafficking ring. The banks and the bank records have the information and the evidence that we need to understand who benefited, where this money went, who was actually paying for the violence and the rape and the abuse of these girls, these children in some cases, and women. And so at the top of my list is going to be the financial institutions and all of the records as it relates to the Epstein case.
Yeah, and I think right now still the DOJ and Pam Bondi are blocking NBC News from obtaining the name of two Epstein associates who are wired hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like that would just blow things wide open. But of course, we're talking about all the corruption taking place in Washington, all the pain that Republicans want us to feel. I want to talk specifically about SNAP, and can you give a little explanation of how Republicans are weaponizing millions, tens of millions of people who will not be able to feed themselves to try to put pressure on Democrats to cave during the shutdown?
I mean, it's shameful. There are people, as you know, there are millions across this country and in all of our states that depend on food assistance and SNAP benefits. The way that food assistance comes to our states and local communities, and it's not just. I mean, a lot of people misunderstand the way kind of food assistance works. It's just not just also sent directly to individuals. Oftentimes, it's organizations, or it might be, let's say, a community college that has a food pantry, or or a university that's helping students that are experiencing some type of issue around food security. All of these programs, the food banks, everyone is impacted. These large national state programs, and people that are relying on their basic ability to feed themselves and their families and their children depend on these programs. And Republicans, because of the shutdown, are choosing to allow people to go hungry. They're choosing to allow healthcare costs to skyrocket because they don't want to address problems that actually impact working class people, people that are struggling in our country. Everything that they said during the election is clearly a lie.
Yeah.
They are not the party of working people. They are not the party of the poor. They are not the party of family values. If they were, they would support this food assistance. And by the way, those that are impacted the most in many cases here are actually going to be in red, more conservative states, and people that need this assistance. And so they need to reopen this government, extend subsidies to ensure that people can still afford their health care, and then to stop playing games with people's food and their ability to feed their family.
And they've been telling a kind of a similar lie about both healthcare and food assistance programs, where it's like people are mooching or there's waste, fraud, and abuse. I've seen this argument pushed by the right that people who are on food assistance are just like, 23-year-olds playing video games, or of course there's the, disgusting racial element where they try to, say the welfare queen is just like buying Oreos and like Diet Coke. And it's like, you shouldn't be paying for that. You shouldn't be paying for people to buy snacks. And like, that's kind of the argument that they try to make for attacking like the supposed waste and abuse, which they never actually gave a fuck about. How do you think that we as Democrats need to be responding to that lie and that narrative that's being pushed?
Look, I want to say two things. Let me just first say that there is going to be some level of programs that aren't managed correctly. There's going to be some abuse in any program, whether it's a government program, a private program, at a university. There's no program is perfect. But to somehow punish vast majority of people on a program because they think there is a small abuse happening here or there is ridiculous. But let's get to the real argument. They want to talk about someone that is hungry or poor abusing a system for dollars worth. Let's talk about the billionaires in this country that every single day rip off millions of Americans because of the welfare that they get by not paying taxes, by us transferring working people's wealth that people are working for every single day and just giving them. We're giving the billionaires in this country all of our hard-earned wealth. That is actually the real scandal. You want to talk about people mooching off government? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the billionaire class in this country.
Yeah, there's no one who benefits more from SNAP and who's ripping off that program than Walmart, not only in the billions that they make off of it, because people need to be fed, but because they are able to pay employees less than living wages, knowing that the government will subsidize it. That's the billionaire class. That's the bullshit that we got to call out. I appreciate you doing so, as always, Congressman, and thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, anytime, man. Thank you.